Hello and welcome everyone to the first ever Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. To my right is Rob Peeters and I'm Josh Roller. We are recording from Indianapolis, and each week we will be discussing racing topics surrounding IndyCar and NASCAR, but we might dabble into other forms of racing as well, like Formula 1 or World of Outlaws. You never know what comes up. We are excited to share our thoughts and observations about IndyCar and NASCAR, but we'll also hope to educate and share a little bit of history with you as well. We will discuss a little bit of that later. Of course, before we get started, let's share a little bit about ourselves. But be sure to follow Rob on Twitter at rpeters33. That is at symbol RPEETERS33. And be sure to follow me at roller_01. That is the at symbol ROLLER_01. So Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit how you got into racing and motor racing and how you decided to become a journalist?
Well, motor racing, for me, racing in general, has pretty much been in my blood since I've been about 3 years old. My dad always likes to tell the story about how he took me to Lowe's one time, and there was a Mike Skinner die-cast car just sitting there at Lowe's. I still have it. It's not right now with me, but it is at my parents'. So I still have it. And I saw that in the store, and I wanted it, so he bought it for me. And I mean, you know, it was only about like a couple of bucks probably, so it really wasn't that big of a deal for my dad. But then we went home that night, and he always says it was Bristol. I don't know. I think it was probably Charlotte or something. But we watched. I freaked out because I saw the same car on the TV, and ever since then, it's literally just been a passion. I don't even have. That's the story that I have to say. Is I saw Mike Skinner car and I wanted it, and then I saw Mike Skinner on the track on the TV. And that's how I wanted it. So it really kind of just grew from there for me. I really still love NASCAR. I love IndyCar. I love Formula 1. I pretty much will watch any kind of racing that exists. If it's got 2, 4 wheels, heck, 3 wheels. 3 wheels. Sidecar racing. Let's go with that. That's an obscure one that most people don't know about. I love to watch sidecar racing. But I really got into journalism because I wanted to do something in motorsports, but I wasn't smart enough to be an engineer. Not good at math, but I could write. And I could talk. So that's where I went. So I'm now officially a journalism grad, class of 2018 IUPUI, and I'm here. I'm covering the 500. I love the month of May because of that, because then I get all this opportunity to cover the race and get so many wonderful opportunities to meet great people. And working on a website, working for various publications, just writing wherever I can, and that's really where it goes. So, I mean, I do like other sports. I mean, it's no secret that I am a huge cricket fan, and a lot of people that have United States accents like me probably are like, what are you talking about? What is cricket? But that's for me. For me, I love cricket. I think it's great. But we're going to talk about racing today. And next week and future weeks, and that's what we're doing today. So, like Josh said, we're live from Indianapolis, and right where in the heart of the World Center of Racing.
Yeah, I got into racing really kind of tragically. We've discussed this. It's the day after Dale Earnhardt died. My mom says, "Hey, your dad's favorite driver, he passed away," or however she worded it. Yesterday, why don't you go give him a hug and tell him you're sorry? And, I'm 6.5 years old, I don't know the grasp of that, but we started watching racing, Rockingham and Las Vegas and Atlanta, those 3 weeks after, 3 critical weeks in the history of NASCAR at that point. And I fell in love with the blue base, orange flames, and yellow 24 of Jeff Gordon. My dad, being an Earnhardt fan, kind of was, I don't know if he was upset or disappointed, but they took me to the first race in Michigan that June. Kmart 400. Jeff Gordon wins. I'm hooked for life. I didn't initially have a plan to go into racing, but it was it's in my blood. I watch it every week, and like he said, he was a journalism grad. Well, I was a history of political science major. So, and then I get a car. I'm leasing that car. And I'm listening to sports radio, and I'm thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to talk sports. And that, it was Fox Sports Radio, Dan Patrick Radio, and NASCAR, SiriusXM NASCAR. So I decided to go to graduate school land an IPY like Rob did. I'm in the master's program and hoping to officially graduate here in about a month, actually. So we're looking forward to that. And he watches any type of form of racing. I watch about any type of form of racing. I mainly keep the IndyCar and NASCAR and like Formula One, but he will watch anything. Even those big trucks racing the Nürburgring in Germany, man.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, man, something about the British or what is it called? I think it's British Truck Racing Association. Not just Nürburgring. When I first got Motors TV through Sling in like 2016, may it rest in peace forever. Man, that was the coolest thing I ever saw. Was probably that and watching 4-year-olds race karts and give interviews to like people. I thought that's. There's something people don't know is there's every type of motorsport that exists out there is in some way, shape, or form broadcast. And you can find it. You can find it out there. It's on YouTube or it's on some other website. You might have to pay for it or something. But I love it. I'll actively look for it. I think yesterday while I was waiting the rain out at Indianapolis, for sure I was watching a MotoGP French Grand Prix. And MotoGP is a lot of fun. But It's always good to keep to the American sports that people know, especially if that's where your target audience is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we gave you a little background here. We'll go to our first segment, and it's the featured paint scheme. So we're going to choose a paint scheme from a particular series. And this week it's a little different. Indianapolis 500 is obviously coming up here in a couple days. So how this will usually work is we'll plan ahead, say, hey, choose something from the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and we'll share it with everyone and where it was ran, how it did, that kind of deal. Well, like we said, 2019 is our selection this year for the Indianapolis 500. I chose Connor Daly's 25, and I love the shark nose art paying tribute to the U.S. Air Force, and really always reminds me of World War II, even though in the releases they said they're modeling after the A-10 and the F-16 and the new F-35, but it's always World War II when nose art was king.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think the paint scheme is great. I always think it's a great thing when people who design paint schemes and liveries, when they go out of their way to kind of make the front nose of the car look scary, and that's really something that reminds me of back in the day when Dan Gurney's All-American Racers always had that kind of livery on the car, and even today Sebastian Bourdais has something similar to it on the front of his car. But for me personally, I'm going to have to say, and this might be a little bit unfair, but I think all 4 of the Penske cars are probably some of the most beautiful cars out there in Indianapolis. Now, my original choice that I had was I was going to say Max Chilton's car was the best, because I think a light blue livery with white and black, I think that is beautiful, and I'll always say that's beautiful. But unfortunately, he didn't make the show, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But for me, I think there's something about seeing that Shell Pennzoil livery on Joseph Newgarden's car that just really reminds you of Elio, and it's almost a tribute to him in itself. Whereas Elio is paying tribute to Rick Mears with the Yellow Submarine, and I think that's great.
Car.
Oh, it's beautiful. And then you have Will Power going out here with the sleet flat black matte.
It's his first special paint scheme, I think, ever.
Yeah, I think so.
Driving Penske, he's always had one paint scheme.
But I love it because I loved when Power drove the Verizon cars. I thought the black and white Verizon looked a lot better than the silver. And I know that's a bit of a controversial statement. A lot of people tend to lean more towards I like the silver liveries now. But for me, I think that original Verizon liveray was very, very appealing to me, and so it's great to see Will Power out there. You can definitely tell which one he is now. I think years ago, last couple of years, I was like, which one's Power? I mean, I don't know which one's Power.
You had to look really close.
Yeah, really.
All 3 had you coming down the straightaway, you're like, ah.
But now he's got his own scheme, and I really like that. But then we've got to go back and talk about the fabulous fluorescent Menards car of Simon Pagenaud, who has just a beautiful car. And if you know me personally, I am the largest fan of, I think probably the only fan, really, actually, of the early 2000s, late 90s IRL. And the reason why I say that is because that was when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So you got into NASCAR a little bit later than I did. Got into racing, I should say, a little bit later than me. I got into racing probably around 1997. So I'm 2 years old at this time. So really, like 98, 99, 2000, 2001 was really a period of when I was watching whatever races my dad would put on, and almost all the time it would be IRL. So I would see Greg Ray go out there, or Tony Stewart, or someone like that in the Menards car, and I just fell in love. And I still fall in love with the Menards car, even when it changed from yellow to blue. But even the green Menards cars from way back in the day that Eddie Cheever, I think, ran, and Ari Lyondike, too, in the 500, I think those are great too. So, it's always nice to see a Menard car back on the pole too, because that's something that we haven't seen for a long time, probably since the 90s. And the best part about it is it's probably not going to break down halfway through the race.
Yeah.
So we have that going for us. So that's where I'm coming from on paint schemes. I really like what the Penske guys have brought. That's not to take away from some of the other paint schemes. I still think that there's some really good ones out there, but the ones that catch my eye are the Penske cars. But again, I mean, it's probably an honorable mention to Marco Andretti, 50th anniversary of the Granatelli car, which again also in itself is a beautiful car. But I mean, for me, I didn't grow up in that era.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably sacrilege to a lot of people, but when you grow up in an era where Menards cars are running up front, that's really kind of where you go to. You don't really identify with STP branded cars, even though I do love them. I think that STP branded cars are beautiful, but that's where I'm coming from today. So those are my picks for the best paint scheme.
Yeah, Elio was a close second for me. Every single time that paint scheme hits a track, it's just awesome to watch, and and you got a great driver behind it, so he's going to do well too, which is obviously what you're looking for. So our next segment would be outstanding performance of this past week, and I'm going to let Rob take this one first. And I think you got something from the track.
Yeah. Well, I've been out at the track most of the week. Not every day, just because, sometimes I have to work, sometimes I don't have to work. Sometimes you just like a nice little day off and you want to watch it at home for a little bit. But for me, I've got to say the most outstanding performance of the whole month so far has been Ed Carpenter's team. Not just, to put all three of your cars on the first two rows of Indianapolis is... Quite honestly, and to have had a chance, there was a very specific moment where it was entirely possible that he could lock out the front row.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were cheering for that.
And when is that going to happen? And that's the thing about Ed Carpenter is he always brings the best of the best here to Indianapolis, and it's really, really, nice to see because you want to see a local hometown guy win. I want to see a local hometown guy win. So someone like, Connor Daly or even Ed Carpenter, someone like that, those would be great feel-good stories for the month of May and for the winter. Of course, there's a lot of people, you read comments online all the time about crazy people saying that Carpenter and Daly are the reason why IndyCar is terrible now. And those are the conspiracy theorists that I don't really like to pay much attention to. So, but I think Ed Carpenter, as a team owner, truly brings his best stuff to Indianapolis, and he's proven it year after year after year. I mean, last year, putting, again, 3 cars in the Fast 9, and Danica Patrick having a super fast car. She hadn't raced in Indianapolis since 2011. And, if you could prepare a car that's that fast and have someone that quite literally has not raced in 7 years in a car, and a car that's changed so much. The last time Danica ran a car, it was high downforce, the Dallara IR05. It was totally different beast back then. And then she gets in this other car, this brand new low downforce car that's a lot faster, and she still goes out there and puts it on a good run. And so, and even with Ed Jones, and this is his first oval that he's run this year. Of course, it's the first oval for everyone, but it's his first real oval race for Ed Carpenter Racing and Scuderia Corsa. So it's just really great to see a team like that really just come right out and say, we beat all the other teams. We beat the Andretti's. They only lost by .003 of a mile an hour to a Penske car. Yeah. I mean, that's how close the pole was. And that's just incredible. So my performance of the week is going to go to Ed Carpenter and Ed Carpenter Racing, and just how fast their cars were, and how fast their cars will probably be on Sunday too. So Josh, why don't you go ahead and tell us who your performance of the week is?
You know, it was after yesterday. It was kind of tough. I think I wanted to choose Kyle Kaiser a little bit, just what that team struggled through.
Yeah.
But I sat and I watched the NASCAR All-Star Open, and I watched the All-Star Race. Bubba Wallace and Richard Petty Motorsports. That's a team. No secret, is struggling. It's not has been struggling. They are struggling, and it's been a while. I mean, his highlight is his second place finish at Daytona in the Daytona 500 last year. Mm-hmm. So, and they're looking for sponsorship. Obviously, Motors Racing, sponsorship driven, money driven. The more money you got, the more money you're able to spend on development and making your stuff better. Well, here's a guy who went out there and beat some very good cars, almost in stage one of the Open, just by a foot and a half. But and then went out and did it and beat Larson and beat Suarez, who's both in better equipment. His crew chief Derek Stamet makes the call. Hey, we're going to stay out. We're going to stay out, and we're going to take a shot at this victory for stage one in the Open. And they just miss it. If he doesn't slide up the hill in that final turn, coming to the checkered flag, I think he wins. I mean, William Byron, who was on fresh tires, might have got there, but no. I think he would have been the winner of stage one. Stage two, another late caution. You know, you had the rookies Daniel Hemrick and Ryan Priest tangle and wreck in turns 3 and 4. So now we're getting another green-white checkered. What does Stamet do? We're going to stay out. We're going to stay out again. We couldn't air a shot.
Pittings for losers.
Pittings for losers. And then Bubba, like you said, Bubba proved it almost. He goes out there and he got some excellent pushes, and he did some excellent pushing too. And he's able to hold off Suarez at just to the point where he's right there on his rear quarter panel. And that was a key. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Was a key to that race was if you get to someone's quarter panel, you could pull them back there, and at least the Open. And he didn't give up, stayed right there, shoots past him, and goes on the backstretch, blocks him, keeps him behind there. Might have been some contact coming to the line, but you know what? That was a racing. It's the all Open. As we've seen in the past few years, like Larson and Elliott a few years ago.
Oh, that was wonderful. Yeah. What was the one, Trevor Bayne? Did he win that one? Or
I don't remember now.
I can't remember now either. But
it was that kind of a finish, and you know. I don't think Bubba had to go down and kind of give him a look. There might have been a little bit of nudge. It spent Suarez spinning, and Larson ended up finishing second in that one. But Bubba wins, and he's moving on. You can see that he goes out and hugs everyone from that team. Him and Blaney embrace for a good while, and we all know Bubba does not shy away from his emotions.
Of course not. He wears his heart on his sleeve. That's what everybody in the media always says.
Everybody says that, and we heard that, and I heard that in the broadcast a number of times. So, but that's what we like. That's a personality, and he knows what it means. He came out this week. You know, he felt like a failure for a while. You know, and that's tough. And I feel like I've done to do the same thing, be in his position. Like we're not performing. Where would I here's a guy whose first 5 races improved on the finish. All right,
yeah, for real,
and. Now they're struggling to maintain a top 25 points position. So, yeah, is it easy to feel like a failure? Sure, but look realistically where you're at. But this is a huge confidence shot for that team. And then a little bit of strategy, and he finishes 5th in the All-Star race. That's awesome. I mean, and who did he lose to? Larson, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano. Yeah. I mean, he didn't have a winning car, but he had a car that was able to hang off there. I think, that I hope this team has a new sense of confidence and energy walking into the Coke 600 this weekend, and really for the rest of the year. That knowing, hey, we beat some good cars a number of times in the Open, and we played the strategy right, and we were able to hold off because he wasn't slow, didn't fall back. He restarted high up there, raced his way up a little bit, then got passed a couple times the last couple laps, but he held his position, 4th position, for I think 6 laps, and then only fell back to 5th. Like I said, he finished 5th. It was an awesome day for him. Performance of the day or the week goes to Bubba Wallace in my eyes, but like I said, Kyle Kaiser still a close, and Nucleus Racing still a close second. So moving on to our next one, it's called upshift, downshift. All right, upshift you agree, downshift you don't. All right, it's really quite that simple.
Right.
So, all right, Rob. NASCAR should quit using the All-Star race as a proving ground for future Cup Series packages.
I'm going to have to do a hard downshift on that one. And I'm going to explain a little bit. Because when you were talking this last, not long ago about, what you love to see about Bubba Wallace and doing the All-Star Open and the All-Star race. And, a lot. I love the All-Star race. And I like the All-Star Open. And the All-Star Open, to me, has always been a fun race to watch. Because it's kind of like what I imagine watching the race from a midfielder's perspective is. Because I feel like in most motorsports nowadays, the midfield is really where all the action is. You got the guys up front, they're pulling away, they're doing their own thing, they're in leagues of their own. But then you got the midfield back here battling it out, and they're a lot more closer together in terms of performance, in terms of speed, in terms of driver talent, things like that really make it so much fun. So the Open, to me, has always been like the best of the midfield, and so the best racing always comes out there. And I think for NASCAR, they have a situation where they haven't really had the best aero package at all. What they should be doing is doing individual aero packages, because I think we've seen that this new package that they have runs a lot better on 1.5 miles. And the reason why it does that is because they tested it on 1.5 miles last year.
Absolutely.
And so of course the race is going to look better on 1.5 miles, and that's not a bad thing. But the problem is NASCAR needs to say, all right, well, we made these 1.5 mile tracks better, but the problem is now we've got the 2 mile and the 1 mile and the short track races that just simply aren't up to par with what else we need. So I think that whole first couple of races of NASCAR where the whole package was just trying, it didn't work out well. So I think that it's a good thing, because the All-Star race is not meant to be a points-paying race. The All-Star race is meant to be a big, fun night. And that's what I think it is. I like the All-Star race, and I would like there to be a little bit more incentive to win and to run well there. I would like to see maybe the racing be a little bit closer than we have seen in the past. But I think the Open provided that perfectly. The Open provided specifically what we needed in terms of racing in NASCAR. It was very exciting. I mean, you texted me and said, dude, you got to watch this Open. So I'm walking out of the racetrack at IMS.
You run to your car and you're trying to scramble to find the radio.
Well, not even that. I pulled it up on my phone. I pulled the race up on my phone.
That's right.
And I just said, I've got to catch these last couple of laps or whatever. I honestly thought, I didn't know it was the end of a stage. So I preemptively was like, Bubba Wallace wins the Open. And I was like, oh, boy, wait a minute. That was just a stage. Wait a minute. Yeah. I didn't realize that. So coming in late. And then when I got in the car, I got on the radio, and I realized, wait a minute, they're still running another 10 laps? Like, wait, what? What just happened? I didn't realize what just happened there. So, but I think that NASCAR needs to use the All-Star race for more experimental things, because they experimented with a lot of things in the All-Star race before, like the idea of stage breaks. And it worked out. It worked out, and I think, we've created a situation where the All-Star race can be our ultimate testing ground, where it's a race, but it's also, a giant test session with $1 million at the end. And at the same time, I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But, you might have a differing opinion. I don't know. What do you think you're going to upshift or downshift on this one?
I thought about this. I typed the question out, and now I'm thinking, for years I've said I don't like this testing. The All-Star race does not need to be a test. But we also know the economics of the sport. Mm-hmm. It's tough to get 40 cars or even 30 cars to a track to test. So for me, I'm on downshift, but it's a hard one. I would like to see the All-Star race, you play by the same rules, let's throw the NBA out, because the NBA is a little different, because they don't play defense, but MLB, you're still throwing the pitch, you're still playing that, in the NFL to an extent, you're still playing the game in the same rules. Was it Ed Hockley? Yes, there are still flags.
Yeah, yes, there are penalties in the Pro Bowl.
Yes, there are still penalties in the Pro Bowl. So,
thanks for mentioning that I'm a large Ed. I like the referee more than I like the team.
Absolutely. So, so to me, I want the rules to be the same. Mm-hmm. But if we can't say, all right, we're going to run the All-Star race on Saturday night, Tuesday, everyone bring a car, and we're going to test, and we're going to do a day of testing. guys are wanting to either take a couple days off. The crew guys want to be at the shop, finishing whatever touches you got to get done on the 600 car. So that was a pretty difficult task for the sport and the sanctioning body to be in, particularly when the racing hasn't across the board been consistently good. And you can't say, all right, the mile and a halves are good this year. Now they're bad the next year, and now the short tracks are better. I'm hoping that this year, next year, are mulligan years. And when we hopefully roll out the Gen 7 car in 21, it's going to be a lot better racing. We'll see, some of these things be implemented. And that one of the things was this package. We'll talk a little bit about that later, about what they did run. So, yeah, downshift on that one. So, Hinchcliffe's failure to make the top 30 on Saturday qualifying will intensify the conversation for the big three teams, Penske, Ganassi, and Andretti, to create guaranteed starting positions for the Indianapolis 500. Upshifting or downshift on that one?
Is there a way to shove it into neutral on here? Because I want to say upshift because I think that it's going to fuel a lot, and not just Hinchcliffe, but I think also seeing Max Chilton miss the race as well is going to really fuel a lot of that fire. But again, it's Indianapolis. And if you don't bring your best stuff to Indianapolis, you don't deserve to be there. And McLaren said that multiple times. And I said that before McLaren started saying that.
Yeah.
I said that months ago. It's going to fuel them, of course, because that's what they want. They want a 25-8 rule. They want that to happen again. We want to see, they want to see the IRL rules come back. And it's kind of like, well, you guys were so against it before. Why are you so for it now?
I think it's money. It's money. You're losing on money.
It was about money back then too.
But I think it's just so much more now. With the climate of motor racing in general in corporate America.
Right, but when you have a team like Fernando Alonso come out here and they said they sold every single sponsorship package on that car and they still didn't make the race. They're an open team. Does their ability to do that mean that they should have been in the race too? Not just because they're a full-time team. There's so many different ways you could look at it. There's so many different ways that you could look at something like this where, who deserves to be in the race? Does a small team like Yunkos deserve to be in the race if they might not even be a contender? Or does a big team like McLaren deserve to be in the race even though they were slower than everybody else? Does someone like Max Chilton deserve to be in the race even though he was slower than everybody else? But again, I'm going to go back to that and say that's more... I think missing the race right now is more of an issue with the way qualifying is done. Because I think the major issue we have with qualifying right now is that this past Sunday was dramatic. No doubt about that. It was dramatic. It was very dramatic. Even Saturday was dramatic.
Very.
But Saturday was... It felt fair. It felt more fair. Fernando Alonso got 5 attempts to run to qualify. James Hinchcliffe had at least 2 attempts to qualify with his backup car. Not just his primary that he wrecked, but his backup car as well. But the last row shootout
you
had one shot. So I watched Max Chilton, and he messed up in the corner. He had a gust of wind. He had a bad run. And it took him back. It made him miss the race. Yeah. And now previous years in Indianapolis, that wouldn't have happened. And I think the rules that we have here are really driving a lot of that kind of discussion because you don't know if you're going to be able to go out there and make another run, especially in that situation. Hinchcliffe had no idea if he was going to be able to go out there and make another run. Alonso knew he wasn't going to be able to make another run. It's one and done, and that's not how qualifying needs to be.
I agree.
Because, especially at Indianapolis, because, at Indianapolis, these cars are trimmed out so much more than they're trimmed out in any other qualifying anywhere. NASCAR qualifying doesn't matter. I mean, they might trim them out for Daytona, but they know at the end of the day it doesn't matter. Yeah. If your car is solidly 20th, you could still start in the second row. Mm-hmm. But in Indianapolis, if your car is solidly 20th and you think you could start maybe 10th, you have the ability to withdraw your time and go back out there at a different time. And another thing, too, is the track conditions. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many variables that go into qualifying in Indianapolis, and there's too many variables to really say you get one shot. I think, and I read this, Jim Aiello said this in a story, and I wanted to kind of poke a little bit about it, and it says that Mark Miles does want to change this kind of format and say, no, okay, we're gonna we're going to make it timed. The last row shootout be timed. It'll be like an hour, you know. So, and it would take like what, maybe 20 minutes to get through the 6 cars that ran in the last row shootout. So, I mean, that would have given them at least another solid 40 minutes to withdraw their times and to go out and make another runs. And then once the gun sounds, then that's that.
Yeah.
But at least everybody knows that they had multiple attempts to get in the race.
Yes.
So if you just weren't fast enough, you just weren't fast enough. You don't hate yourself. You know, the driver, like, I feel terrible for someone like Max Chilton, who probably went out there thinking, okay, we've got a good chance. We can get in there. And then all of a sudden he comes out of turn 2, a gust of wind hits him, and he has to get out of the throttle.
Yeah.
And that's that. And then there you go. He probably knew at that moment, oh, crap, I just hit a 225. No matter what I do, I could run 230 and it still wouldn't help me.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a real problem. I mean, that's something that... And that's why we have so many different qualifying attempts. Because if you go out there and you don't have the right track conditions, or if, you know, a gust of wind hits you the wrong time, your setup is off, your gear ratios are off, something like that, you can go back and you can change it. You can make the car better and then qualify it again so that the car performs what it was supposed to. Because I don't really think that any of those cars out there on Sunday in the last row shootout performed where they needed to. And I know I've gotten off on a tangent here a little bit, but it's really more down to the rules. I think if the rules are made so that it's a lot more fair to open teams and to full-time teams to have multiple attempts to get into the race, I don't think you're going to see that happen. Because I think the main reason why they're talking about that is because last year, Hinch didn't have another option.
No.
I mean, that day was bump day. I mean, if you didn't qualify that day, sorry. And that was a problem, you know, because you were getting through so many guys, and you had so many guys trying to go for the fast 9, and you had so many guys trying to just get into the race at the same time that it created this problem where Hinch was on the outside looking in. So I think IndyCar needs to go back and take a look and say, well, we don't want to make it completely... We don't want to lock you guys in completely, but we want to give you guys more chances to lock yourselves in. And if you don't get in, tough, you know? Yeah. You just got to look at them and say, tough. You didn't bring your best stuff to Indy. What else do you want us to do? Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to go out there, and I don't want to see a car qualify 33rd and be 3 seconds off the pace, and then just run around. I don't want to see another 2012 Lotus situation where we had 33 cars show up, and the Di Silvestro and John Alesi were 15 miles an hour off the pace, and they got flagged. So it's like they were just taking up space anyway. So you might have a situation where if you lock those entries in, you just have these guys out there just taking up space for no reason, that are 15 miles an hour off the pace, and they get flagged, and their day's over 15 minutes in, and 15 laps in. So I that's why I'm going to say it's kind of more of a shifting into neutral, but also kind of shifting into just neutral then upshift, really.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go upshift. I'm going to agree with you for all the same reasons. I won't go into elaboration because you said everything I really wanted to say too. So it will lead to a rule change that will say, you know, the shootout on paper, the shootout's great. One attempt, it looks like it's going to be fun, and it was fun to watch. But it's not really fair to the teams, like you say. So to go out there, give them an hour and a half to go. Okay, do you want to go again? Are you happy with where you're at? You got 10 minutes left. You just got bumped out. You got to go back out. Is that what you want to do? So obviously, if you're getting bumped out, you have to. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say upshift, but it will lead to rule changes, and then hopefully we'll see these talks die down.
You know, the last row shootout, that format, I mean, it works better for the Fast 9. Because for the Fast 9, if you screw up, the worst you're going to start is 9th. Mm-hmm. But in the last row shootout, if you screw up, you're not going to make the race.
Yes. And
that's really what we're seeing the problem is. So if they really want to do that, I think something that determines where you get into the race should be a timed situation, where you have multiple attempts to at least try.
Should NASCAR run multiple series or open the All-Star race to drivers and teams from the Xfinity and Gander Outdoors Truck Series?
That's an odd one. My initial reaction there is going to be a hard downshift, because the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series aren't All-Star caliber yet. I mean, maybe some of the Truck Series, maybe in its original intent, was definitely All-Star caliber. I mean, there was a ton of drivers out there that would have been considered an All-Star in the Truck Series, from its inception to about 2003, maybe. But now the Truck Series is just for for young drivers. Pretty much, it's
developmental series, so a stepping stone to the next thing.
Some people call it a daycare, and
that's a good one.
I still kind of call it a daycare because I don't know half the drivers that are in the truck series. I know maybe Johnny Sauter and Matt Crafton, and that's really the only two that have been in NASCAR long enough for me to like really have a strong opinion about them. Whereas all these young guys, it's like, if you're not watching K&N every race, you have no idea who these guys are.
Yeah.
And Xfinity's not really the same kind of idea because it's for a little bit more advanced drivers, and I did like, guys like Elliott Sadler going back there and kind of making it their home and their home. Because if you have better chances of getting a full-time ride in Xfinity, I think you should go for it. I don't like guys who just take bare bones rides in Cup just to say that they're in Cup. Mm-hmm. I say if you can get a competitive ride in the Xfinity Series and you can just sign a 3-year deal and go out there, win the championship.
Yeah.
If you blow by Kyle Busch because you're in a better car than him, just do it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about getting into Cup. And I see that so many times with young drivers. Like, does someone like Joey Gase deserve to be in the All-Star race? Like, no. Because when is Joey Gase ever going to realize that he could have a far better career in Xfinity than he'll ever have in Cup? Guys like that don't really need, I think, to have that exposure yet. But guys like Bubba Wallace do. Guys that are in the open, those guys deserve that kind of exposure because they're working just as hard as everybody else, but they might not have the resources, they might not be not talented enough, but they might not have the experience that they need, So I don't think, I think opening it up to them would just be opening up a can of worms and almost like a participation trophy at that point. The All-Star race kind of loses some of its charm through something like that. But I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going downshift too. There's been a lot of talk about that, I guess, in the last week or so. People chiming in on that. But I agree. I think it'd be interesting. The only way I think it would work is if you said, okay, we're gonna if you win a race, you can bring your equipment, and if you beat the class, so trucks would be class, Xfinity class, Cup would be class. If you beat the class ahead of you, you get an extra X amount of dollars. So like if Xfinity goes out there, they win the entire thing, they get $2 million. That's the only way I think it would work. But I'm going to say downshift. I think it'd just, like you said, opening up a can of worms.
Yeah.
That I don't think we can put back in. We can't put that back in the bottle because I feel like it would be too good of a race almost. Watching some of these guys go out there and make fools of themselves in some way, and
given someone like that $2 million almost makes it pointless for a Cup team to go out there and try and win because they get less than that.
Yeah, well, they're expected to. It's kind of like a word that, but I'm downshifting on that.
Yeah,
one, so
I think that's a hard downshift for us.
Yeah. Will James Hinchcliffe come from 32nd starting position to win his first Indianapolis 500, and doing so become the lowest starting position winner for the Indianapolis 500?
I'm not even going to upshift or downshift. I'm going to miss the gear entirely and say absolutely no, not. I'm going to say absolutely not. Hinchcliffe, I love Hinchcliffe. Everybody loves Hinchcliffe for the most part. He's a very, very popular driver. He's a fan favorite. But, it's so hard to come from the back and win. Mm-hmm. You can come from the back and maybe get a top 5, top 10. But to come from 32nd...
The last row.
Yeah, the last... I mean, how many guys that are in the last row are really... I mean, Hinchcliffe was 227. Meanwhile, Ed Carpenter was a solid 230, and Simon Pagenaud was a solid 230. But, race day is usually the great equalizer, and usually, situations and circumstances could change. So, the reason why I say missed a gear is because it's hard for me to go straight up or straight down. It's hard for me to really choose. Hinchcliffe could just have great strategy. He could do an undercut, get a caution at the right time. Next thing you know, he's leading the race on the same pit strategy as everybody else. That's a possibility. Or he could go a lap down early in the race in anything. Indianapolis is more of a crapshoot, if anything, when you're talking about when you're talking about starting position. Because I think at one point it used to matter where you started. But now it's kind of become kind of like Daytona is for NASCAR, where wherever you start really doesn't determine how well you're going to run in the race. And we've seen guys start from the back many times before. I think of the year Tony Kanaan had all those problems. trying to qualify for the race. What was it, 2009 or something? And he still came back and finished pretty well, pretty respectively. And Danica Patrick, Marco Andretti in 2011, where they basically were bumping each other out of the field. They both ended up making it, and then they both ended up finishing in the top 10. So I think such situations like that where it comes down to the driver. And James Hinchcliffe is a good driver, so I think it's entirely possible that he'll drive up through the field and be a contender towards the end of the race. But do I think he'll win? I'm not going to go that far, but you might have a different feeling than me. Do you think he's going to win?
I'm looking through starting positions of Indianapolis 500 winners. A couple guys have, I think the lowest 28th, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. A couple guys have done that, but there's not too many guys in the 20s. There's not too many guys in the low teens.
Mm-hmm.
It's or high teens, excuse me, but as many low teens and single digits. So, no, I'm going downshift. I'm not going to miss the gear.
You're not going to miss the gear entirely.
I'm going to be confident with that downshift. And I'm going to say no, he won't do it. I hope for his sake, after missing the race last year, that he's able to rally and say, you know what, I got top 10 out of this thing, and make a good day out of it. And for the whole SBM, him guys, have a good day for all of them. But I'm gonna say no, not until I see a guy starting the last row who's like, I had a terrible qualifying effort, I missed the corner, but he was in the top 10 in practice. Until I see that, I'm not going to upshift on that. We haven't seen that out of him this week, so I'm going downshift. Rob, we talked. You mentioned a couple times you've been at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tell us a little bit about qualifying over the past couple days and what you observed and what you hear from the paddock.
Yeah, I usually go out and try and hang out in the paddock and in the garage area as often as I can, especially when I'm not doing anything. Because it's fun to be in the media center and it's fun to hang out with a lot of the people that you look up to. I had a great conversation with Jake Query the other day, and it was wonderful to just really sit there and have good conversations. But I think down in the paddock, it's really kind of a situation where there seems to be kind of like, do we know how these cars are going to run quite right now? And the reason why I say we don't know how the cars are going to run is because I don't know what the forecast looks like for next week. I'd actually have to double check and find out first. I'd have to reach for my phone real quick and double check on what the forecast is going to be. But I haven't seen a practice session so far this year, this week, and Fast Friday didn't even have it, where we've seen any real pack racing. And I don't really think we're going to see anything like that until Carb Day. And I thought we were going to see it on Monday morning, and I think we saw a little bit of it, but still I don't think it was really truly there. And I'm wondering what passing is going to be like. I wonder what passing is going to be like. I wonder what tire temperature is going to be like. I wonder what track temperature is going to be like, because all of that is going to be very, very, very important come race day. Because as we saw last year was very, very hot. It was hot, track was slick, and passing was just difficult. It was hard to run up against on someone else and not lose your front nose, not have to get out of the throttle. Drafting was a lot more difficult than it had been the past several years. Is it going to be a similar situation this year? We've got these gurney flaps now, finally, on the front and rear wings. And is that going to make passing any simpler? And I haven't seen any indication right now that those have. Because every time I walk through the garage area and the pits, and I see all those spare wings, spare front nose cones and things like that, the gurney flap doesn't look like it's creating nearly as much drag as it has to. And maybe that could just be because nobody's in race trim yet. I think it's because I probably have seen nobody in race trim yet, and so there's no real way to see what the gurney flap is going to do yet. So I think when Carb Day rolls around, we're going to have a real good idea of what the race is going to show us. And it could be like years past, where we're seeing slingshot moves left and right. We're seeing guys passing. We're seeing single file trains, but close together with lots of slingshot passes. Or it could be something like we saw last year, where, guys can get out to big leads, and it can be hard to track a guy down and pass him. It's really kind of just up in the air, because we're still learning with this new aero kit. This is only the second time we've had it in Indianapolis, And we have a few different aero modifications now that could create for better passing, could create for better racing, could create for easier racing. Not necessarily better, but maybe easier, so that you don't have situations like last year where you clearly saw guys struggling. And it didn't matter who you were. If you were a rookie or a second-year guy like Ed Jones, or if you were a 3-time winner like Elio Castroneves, it didn't matter. If a gust of wind catches you out at the wrong time, you're in the wall. We saw that with Danica Patrick. We saw it with Tony Kanaan. We saw that multiple times. It didn't matter who you were.
Yeah.
I hope that there's some way to prevent that, so that a gust of wind doesn't immediately wreck your car. But we've already seen it happen with Hinchcliffe.
Yeah.
Where a gust of wind just, boom, wrecks your car immediately. You have no idea when it's going to happen. So I think it's all about... guys will have to be patient. Patience can only do you so much. I think it's really going to be down to a lot of luck. Because if the track conditions are hot and slick like they were last year, and maybe a little bit windy, it's going to be a tough race. If the track conditions are cooler, cloudy, just like we've seen, maybe in 2013... racing's going to be better, but that's typical of any track.
Yeah.
So the consensus right now that I'm getting from around the paddock is kind of this giant question mark still. A lot of the focus recently was just on qualifying, and now we've entered that post-qualifying era where now we're all focused on race setup, all focused on race trim, and now it's a completely different gamble. And last year it seemed like that was kind of the way it was going to go, and now this year it seems like that's the way it's going to go, where guys just really don't know how to predict a race like this. I mean, you could predict it, but you can't predict, when cautions might fall, what certain situations might be, what track temperature is going to be, what the wind speed is going to be, things like that. It's hard to predict when all of those things really factor into how these cars handle. Whereas in previous iterations, like the Dallara IR05 or the first DW12, none of that really mattered. Track conditions were great for qualifying, but when it got to race day, it could be hot, it could be cool, and it really wouldn't matter. The race would still be pretty good. And you could still pretty well predict how the race was going to be, and you could move your way through. I think this way, we don't know yet. There's just a giant question mark with it that we don't quite know.
Well, I know for me, I've been so busy and I haven't been able to get to the track. But, watching qualifying yesterday... we talked on this a little bit, so I won't extend the conversation more. It was fun to watch, that's for sure. I like what they have done with the last shootout. So I think if they a couple changes there, give them multiple attempts, so it's not the Fast 9. Yeah, you get one shot, you're guaranteed in the race.
Oh yeah.
But it looked fun. It looked good on TV, and so far I'm pretty impressed with what NBC's done too. With their broadcasting, really enjoying Danica Patrick.
I am too.
On town television too.
Man, that's wonderful.
I hope that she might come to her senses, and NBC comes to their senses and says, "Hey, you want to do this full time?"
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember the time she did a race for Fox in the Xfinity series. She was far more knowledgeable than most of those.
And they had her stuck in the studio. They should have had her.
No, for real. Yeah, she shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
But when she was up there talking with Lee and Townsend and PT, she sounded like she knew more than the three of them combined, really.
Yeah.
And so her analysis was really, really good. And I think that's one of those situations where sometimes, and I don't want to say that Danica's not a good driver, because I think she's had, and I've done plenty of studies on this that says differently, that Danica Patrick was clearly an above-average driver that people just don't like because of her hype. But usually, typically, those less successful drivers are usually way better in the commentary booth. I really think that. I think that. About
I'll agree with that.
I think sure. Someone like Parker Johnstone back in the 90s with CART, I loved his commentary, but nobody remembers who Parker Johnstone is. Nobody remembers that. Most people only remember Scott Goodyear for that couple of times, the couple of Indy 500s that he completely blew. Whereas Eddie Cheever was just abysmal to listen to. But I think that's a situation where I'm enjoying NBC's coverage more than I thought I would.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are.
Well, yeah, because when they originally announced that, I was like, what are we doing? We're gonna really break a tradition at Indianapolis? Like ABC's coverage? I don't care how bad ABC's coverage could be.
Yeah.
And a lot of people always said, oh, it's awful, we need to get off of ABC. And I'm like, yeah, it might be bad, but you have ESPN. You know, and that's the thing that people don't realize is that casual sports fans only watch ESPN, and we need to take something away from ESPN worried me a lot. But I think the ratings for the Grand Prix were higher, which is a very positive
Streaming
sign.
were higher too.
Yeah,
a lot higher. That's how I watched it.
Well, I only stream my cable, so. But you know, I think that it's a very positive thing. So anyway, we're gonna move on to the next subject here, real quick.
The All-Star race, you know, the Open was really fun to watch.
Oh yeah,
I know you didn't get to watch all of it. It was to me, it's two different races. Of course, with the new package, you had the first technical component change that happened was you had a single-piece carbon fiber splitter pan that is expected to offer a dramatic improvement in ride height. Well, I think whatever that change did, along with the ducts that were introduced on the front, and then the radiator air exits on the hood, kind of looked like a hood scoop without the scoop almost. The racing was good. In the Open, it seemed like if you could get to a guy's quarter panel, you could almost get a pass guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Particularly earlier in the run, restarts were so critical. It was the hottest All-Star race ever. So, you know, the heat obviously played, you know, a factor in that, slicker track. As we progressed into the All-Star race, the main event, or the A-main, as Kyle Larson called it, you know, that became a little more, passing was a little more difficult. That, in my opinion, it was. You know, watching on TV, I don't even the drivers.
It looked a bit harder.
Yeah.
I mean, the restarts looked like it was real easy to pass, but that's because everybody was bunched up. But once guys got strung out, again, it looked like it's hard to pass. And it's just like, when are they going to fix this?
Tires were critical, too. That's what I liked about this, too. They said last week that, or back in Martinsville a few weeks ago, that the right side tire could last 3,000 laps. I'm like, that's not good. You don't want that. I don't want a tire to last more than 100 laps at Martinsville. I want there to be pit stops and more excitement, more opportunity for things to go wrong and things to get shaken up. But the tires were critical there. You know, Bubba, as we said earlier, stayed out twice. He had a couple guys behind him. If he's the only guy who stays out, he's going to get run over. But he had a couple guys who were willing to work with them, lined up. I think 4 guys stayed out on both those first restarts there in the Open. So tires were critical there. But I'll tell you what, Larson impressed me too. Good to get the monkey off his back as well.
That dude's had a horrible season.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think his past 2 weeks he got 2 back-to-back top 10 finishes. His first win since 2017 in the Cup. I know it doesn't go on his win record.
An All-Star race is a win.
But the All-Star race is a win. And you know what? It does the same thing for that team that it did for Bubba. Gives you a little bit of confidence.
When you look at someone's stats, you know, you always see, like, how many All-Star races did they win? How many Winstons did they win? You know, that's like a big piece to how successful a driver is if can they win an All-Star race? Because anybody could probably beat up on cars that probably aren't as good as them, but when you go to the All-Star race and you can win, that means you're beating the best of the best. You're not beating like 30 other cars that are crummy and maybe having to battle with 15 that are good. You're actually having to beat those other 15. And so an All-Star race is bigger a win, I think, than most people give it credit for.
And Larson, I think, beat 2 good cars.
He did.
Harvick had the best car in that Millennial car.
He yeeted that Harvick car.
Yeah. Here you go. And then Busch, I think, Busch and Harvick, I think, had the best cars. Logano's car was good. Larson, though, owned the restart. And restarts were critical every stage of last night or Saturday night's events. So, hey, I enjoyed it. I think it's the best All-Star race in a few years. I know a lot of people like last year's race because of it was a pack racing, tight together. Drivers didn't necessarily like it.
I thought last year's wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but this year's it was racing and different thing. It was more than like, okay, tires aren't wearing out, so you got to have a faster car. Mm-hmm. No, that wasn't the case. Tires were wearing out. Tires were critical. You saw Brad Keselowski. Only guy stayed out. Guess what happens? He gets freight trained in a lap or two. Chase Elliott, why the hell Alan Gustafson didn't bring Chase Elliott down pit road there before the last stage? Well, he slashed those first 2 restarts because caution laps didn't count in the final stage.
That was something that put me off guard too.
Yeah.
I totally forgot. I'm so used to stage racing and caution laps counting, and then all of a sudden they don't.
Well, and I really enjoyed that, and they had to take a hard lesson. Chase Elliott had a top 5 car.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He had a top 5 car. Finishes 14th.
Yeah.
Okay. Tires mattered. Now now the one question I have goes back to one of our upshift downshift questions. How much of the package had to deal with this? If we're running what we are running on Sunday in the Coca-Cola 600, how different does this race look with the heat, with the tires? So that's the one thing that I have and question about. But whatever it was, if these are the things that get implemented, I hope the Gen 7 car does not have splitters.
Oh,
and
me
we race
too.
the cars off.
Oh Lord, me too.
But if it has these these ducts for the air to get in for the radiator and up through the hood, we still have those in Gen 7. I'm okay. I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
the racing is good. We're happy with it. So
I want to talk about more of that All-Star race.
Go ahead.
Later. I mean, I didn't know. I wanted to double check our show notes here real quick.
Yeah.
And see when are we going to talk about that post-race altercation?
Okay. Yes. That was nuts. I'm sitting there watching, and Mike Joe goes, and there's like a fight, and all of a sudden we see Clint Boyer, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Ryan Newman. It reminded me of Michael Waltrip when he punched Lake Speed. And
but that was just one.
That was two good punches.
No, Boyer went in there and he laid about 5 or 6 good ones on him.
And I think Ryan Newman. We don't really see him get act up. He's a big dude.
I know.
He's scary. I never seen him get out of a car that fast before, or at least recently. But my goodness, and the first thing came to my mind, Boyer, why are you wearing your helmet, bro? You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. I mean,
you got to take your helmet off. You got to take your helmet off if you're gonna. But he ran in. I love when guys fight in NASCAR.
We need more of that.
I don't know why.
Excitement. Not fighting, but excitement. No,
I think it's almost as acceptable as fighting. Fighting in NASCAR is almost as acceptable as fighting in hockey. Where we know it's just part of the sport. It's part of the game.
We see it in the grassroots. We saw it earlier this year at South Boston. A guy jumps in a guy's car trying to unplug stuff, and there's a little bit. It's an excitement factor.
What did the guy do last year at Anderson, where he tried to run over another car something? Yeah. We see guys do that all the time. So I see Clint Boyer running over there, laying 5 or 6 good ones on Newman's face. Newman gets out of the car, has a Coke, and he's clearly got a bloody lip.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I mean, that's what I want to see if the All-Star race, if you don't win the All-Star race,
$1 million on the line.
$1 million is on the line. You should be kicking a guy's butt.
Yeah.
If he messes with your shot at $1 million. No doubt about that. I mean, that should be the case in anything. If you are competing for $1 million and a guy takes it away from you in what you deem as kind of a BS way, you should kick his butt.
I wish we knew more about this background, because it seems like Boyer wasn't given the correct information, because I thought he was a lap down. Like, okay, come on. Why is he up in the third row then if he's a lap down? This isn't 2001.
No.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they moved lap cars back to the rear of the field now.
Yeah, we go double file restarts.
Yeah, we've been doing that since 2009.
I think there was definitely some lack of communication on his part, but he felt like he was done wrong, and it was kind of the opposite thing last week, remember?
Yeah.
Eric Jones went up and blocked him, and he took exception to that. He goes, "You're smarter than that, Eric." I mean, those comments. So, but hey, if a guy wrecked me on a cooldown lap, I might take exception to that too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know. I want to know if Boyer had an issue before that, or if it was the wreck that triggered that. I really think that's what it was. I think he's like, I'm confused right now. But he turned him. He went in the wall. The car was already damaged. Now it's even more damaged.
He's pissed and confused. That's what he is.
That's a dangerous combination.
Exactly.
So and Boyer, he's a personality.
Oh, I love Boyer.
So for him to get that, and we're looking at a replay right now of Newman. Yeah, he's got a little bit red in the face, and
here's Boyer. He looks totally fine. I mean, I don't know how his fists were after that, but we're watching the race here right now. So we've got NASCAR America playing on right now in the background. It's muted, so you're not going to hear anything. But we're they're showing pieces of the fight from Saturday, and I just love Boyer just going in there and wailing on him.
And one official is holding them apart.
Right.
I would not have lost a bet on that prop bet. How many officials are there to hold back a fight? I'm going to say 3, but no, there was 1.
And that's, and it sounds bad that we like fights as much as we do, but come on, fights made the sport.
For sport, yeah. As long as there's motor racing, there will be sport.
There will be fights. There will be fights. I mean, it's not like, it's not just exclusive to NASCAR.
I don't want to see a guy like Kyle Busch go up and sucker punch a guy when he's not looking. I am not for that. But, Ryan Newman saw the Toco
I don't know.
Toco uniform of Clint Boyer walking up to him, and he knew what was coming. His window net was down. Boyer would have taken out the window net anyways. So,
I do appreciate that people let him talk it out.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and the teams weren't all soaring around. We didn't have a Keselowski-Gordon situation in Texas back in 2014.
Or Boyer-Gordon. That was my favorite
That's
one.
a good one, too. Well, maybe not for Gordon fans.
No, not for Gordon fans. But for a NASCAR fan in general, that was just...
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone made the best YouTube video of all time where they... there was the old 5-Hour Energy commercial after that one, and where Boyer would look at the camera after the end and say, 5-Hour Energy, when I got to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And they added that to the end of him running after Gordon.
That was great.
And I was like, yeah, he probably just knocked back a 5-Hour Energy and took off. And maybe Clint had one in his car on Saturday and decided
Looks like he did.
take off and go after Newman.
Yeah. My favorite line, though, where I come from, you do that, you get poked in the nose.
Poked in the nose.
I love that. That's a t-shirt idea. All right. Moving on to our last segment. We've run a little long here today, but
we'll go 130.
We're passionate about it.
We'll go 130.
There we go.
We'll give you guys an extra 30 minutes of us talking.
One of our segments we talked about educating a little bit. The paint scheme will kind of do that a little bit. But the featured track.
Yeah.
And this week... it was my choice to choose the track and talk about it. Indiana State Fairgrounds.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Disappointing news last month when we found out that the operators, basically the Fair Commission, is converting the dirt to crushed limestone for year-round harness racing, which also allows for more parking. We can expound on that here a little bit.
I got quite a bit to say about that.
Yeah. So the 64th Hoosier 100 will be the last here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. It is, for now, the oldest operating 1-mile track. The first race at the track was actually held in 1905. And I'm going to say it anyways. This isn't necessarily the best journalistic principle. But the first night race apparently was held in 1905. I could not find anything on that. I'm interested to find out if that's really, truly true. And I'm like... What do they do? Line up a bunch of cars along the outside? And I don't know how they did that. Or lanterns or what?
There had to have been a giant bonfire somewhere that lit the whole place.
Yeah. The grandstands that were built in 1931 cost $225,000. That's it.
Is that adjusted for inflation? Or
That's not adjusted for inflation. That was back then.
Oh my God.
That was back then, yeah. During World War II, it was used for the Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
So, hey, now connection back to... Connor Daly.
You're right.
2 World War II references. That's making the history political science major me proud. So obviously, most known for the Hoosier 100. There actually was a 100-mile race run there in 1946, run by Rex Mays, but a death by Al Putnam in qualifying. The fair board basically said, no more of this at the track, but it came back when Roger Wolcott teamed with Joe Quinn. Who was the safety director at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They brought racing back. The Hoosier 100 was first run in 1953 under the AAA badge, and then was run under the USAC badge. And from 53 to 70 ran in the series, which is known as IndyCar today. All right, and then. In 1971, USAC split dirt and paved races, so you had the USAC National Championship, and then you had the USAC Silver Crown Championship, which was dirt, the dirt side, Hoosier 100. Bob Swigert, Jimmy Bryan, and Parnelli Jones, Roger Ward, Mario Andretti, AJ Foyt, Al Unser, all 500 champions who won that race. AJ Foyt won it 6 times. He also did it in 3 back-to-backs.
Of course he did. Only AJ Foyt.
Yes. Back then it was held in September, early to mid, depending upon how the schedule kind of fell and stuff. But now it's been running May for the past few decades. And we wanted to ask, where do you think the Hoosier 100 will land next year? Obviously, I think it's got to be on a dirt track.
It has to be on a dirt track. The problem is what dirt track is local to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. I mean, the closest one I can think of, I don't even. I mean, they're not close. They're at least a couple of 3-hour drives, maybe 2-hour drives. Like, I mean, I'm thinking of like Kokomo. I'm thinking of like Lawrenceburg, Terre Haute, Tri-State. I mean, those are all good tracks in themselves, but they're not mile tracks.
Yeah, there's no other mile tracks that can host that. And I thought to myself, there's an oval like that up in Fort Wayne, but it's a test track. It's like 3 miles long and it's paved. Therefore, it's not going to work.
No,
but I would say Kokomo. I'm from Kokomo.
Right. So.
I love Kokomo. It's my favorite dirt track in the world.
Of course.
All right. But my problem is going to be the same problem I think the World of Outlaws left. The track is fine. Mm-hmm. The racetrack facility is fine. The stands need some major attention.
Oh, yeah. You told me about that.
So I think that would be the problem there. I'm thinking maybe if it doesn't go to Brownsburg, it might go to Terre Haute.
I think Terre Haute would be a fine place to put it because, Terre Haute is really where... It's really probably one of the best places to put a dirt track because I love going to the action track. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people say there's not a lot to do in Terre Haute, and I always say, okay, maybe you're
smells.
Right. There was a Sears there last year. It's not there anymore, and that's crazy. Like the last year when I went there was a Sears there that I spent quite a bit of time in and may or may not have tried to take a nap in one of their mattresses. But...
No, you can't prove anything.
No, they can't prove anything at all. I mean, they weren't going to sell that mattress anyway. It's a Sears. But Terre Haute's a good track. But it already holds so many other kind of historic races as well. And I think adding the Hoosier 100 there would just kind of make it
too overpowered.
Yeah.
Could you see something that rotates, where it rotates track to track?
I would like to see that. Yeah, if it would, if the Hoosier 100 would be something like maybe an all-star race or something.
Like, it kind of is.
Right.
It kind of is. It's highly pristine.
Right. It's a prestigious race, and I think maybe having it on a rotating track-to-track basis would be probably the best route to go right now. Though, I'll say also that it's just a shame to see the track.
I hope something changes rapidly. If there's someone that
how many people see harness racing there?
And that's the thing. The harness racing,
I've never seen a harness race there. I've been to the State Fair multiple times. I've lived I've lived in Indianapolis, central Indianapolis, my entire life. And I still, to this day, have never seen a harness race happen at the fairgrounds. And I've been, like I said, been to the State Fair multiple times. I constantly am looking for things to do that involve racing. And I don't care what they are. If it's a horse race, I'll go see it. Yeah, I'll go bet on some ponies. I don't care. That's not that big of a deal. But, that also leads me to believe, if we're going to go harness racing, can we... And this is something I've thought about for a long time. But we have horse racing tracks.
Yeah.
And now, what would it take maybe to convert a track like, Hoosier Park or Indiana Downs or some of those casinos that have popped up lately? Is there any opposition there to maybe holding an auto race? I don't know
That'd be pretty neat. That'd be pretty neat to see.
And you got to understand too that there's probably curfews that are intact.
Yeah.
Which is probably why horse racing exists there, because horse racing, they're not going to make a lot of noise.
Yeah. We can talk. I can get on a tangent about noise and racing.
If you move next to a racetrack of any kind, expect noise. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's a horse track race. It doesn't matter if it's an auto racing track. Expect noise. People who move and buy houses outside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you don't see them complaining. Yeah. It's because they know what they get into and they know where they live. They know they want to live there, and who cares? If you're upset that a race is taking place that late at night, why don't you just go to the race?
And it's not every week. Indianapolis, right. They have 5 or 7 weekends a year where there's noise going on. Mm-hmm. They also have concerts, but I never heard anyone complain about concerts.
Yeah, nobody ever complains about a concert because nobody minds hearing music in the background. But as soon as someone hears an engine, that's a problem. Meanwhile, you could take your Harley and drive that through a neighborhood, and you wouldn't get so much as a citation. Yeah, probably.
Here's the thing that even drives me more crazy. The harness racing bugs me because I'm thinking okay, there can be some controversy with horse racing and racing involved with harnesses because the death and the treatment of horses.
Oh, of course. So, yeah.
But the parking deal. There's part of the track is still not blacktop in the middle.
Yeah.
Why don't you? I get the point. They're going to get rid of even the track of champions in the middle. So why don't you just blacktop the entire center of the track? And they say and just go with that and make a pit wall where it's a little more easy and for drivers to get and the teams to get in and out on the track. But they're doing this all wrong. I think they're doing it for the wrong reasons. My guess is, what did we find out just a year or so ago? Betting.
Oh yeah,
I think that's a pretty big driving factor.
But then, who's going to bet on on harness race? People bet on horse races.
I know,
and I don't mind. A lot. You said there's the thing about horse races where people think that they're inhumane and things like that. Well, we saw a horse this weekend at the Preakness take off without a jockey and finish third from last,
fourth from last.
Fourth from last. Yeah. I mean, come on. These horses are just about as interested in it as the jockeys.
And that was a pretty interesting race myself. I was kind of cheering for that horse to win.
Right, exactly. I mean, we want to see the horse. And it's not like these horses are treated poorly. These horses...
Oh, there's some, yes.
Some of them are, yes. But I'm talking... If you're looking at a horse race as prestigious as the Triple Crown, a race in the Triple Crown...
Those are very well treated horses.
Those are very well treated horses. And I mean, you see, horses like Secretariat. They live to be...
19 years old.
Yeah, 19 years old.
Yeah.
These are loved horses that just happen to race, and they're good race horses.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything inhumane necessarily about that, because I think that the horses have the mentality that they want to win just as much as the jockey does.
Yeah.
And the horse might not understand what's going on, but the jockey does. But the horse might not understand what winning means, but the horse still wants to win. It's competitive. And I mean, it's an animal just like you and me. It's competitive, and animals are competitive. And I think when you see a situation like that, I look at horse racing and I say, oh, the horses are so pretty, and they're so fast, and they're beautiful pieces, and it's beautiful sport. Equestrian, beautiful sport, beautiful sport. But when I look at harness racing, I have never really seen a huge following for that. But you see plenty of huge followings for just general horse racing, and general horse racing can take place on dirt. Mm-hmm. So what? It baffles me that the state fairgrounds can sit there and think, well, let's convert this track that has auto races and other horse races into a harness racing that very, very few people even are interested in.
Yeah.
And I understand if you're trying to take advantage of upcoming legislation that allows betting, but still, you can do that with so many other things.
There's also other tracks around the state that I think are going to be competitive for that market. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I hope that show up Thursday, May 23rd.
Yeah.
Show your support. If you're in the town, hell,
absolutely,
just go and watch it. You're going to get a show.
I think it's one of those things after Media Day that I have to do Media Day. There's a lot of work I have to do on Media Day, but it's one of those things where definitely I want to make it a goal to get out there and see the race even as a fan.
I'm hoping my class gets canceled like the professor's talking about.
Oh, it should.
Because I forget the reasons why, but I hope it does, and I'm able to go out there and witness the last one. So
last race of anything is always something that it's emotional.
I hope it's not the last one.
Right.
I hope it's not the last. I hope something changes. I hope some sense gets knocked into someone. Maybe we can get Clint Boyer to come to
Someone's got it. I mean, Mario Andretti was already very outspoken about it.
Yeah, I would like to see him and some other guys get involved on that one. Like, look, you guys are making the wrong decision on this one. So
because they really are.
Yeah,
they really are, and this isn't. I'm not.
It's the
saying
64th running of the darn thing.
I'm not saying that as a race fan, saying I prefer racing.
Yeah.
But I wonder. It still goes back to the point I made earlier. Is what is the appeal to harness racing?
Yeah.
I've never met anybody who follows harness racing or goes out to a harness race and bets on the results, because quite honestly, that's just not popular. So you're making this track into something. And it's not going to bring you any more money than a Hoosier 100 would.
I think a Hoosier 100 will make more money this year than harness racing will make in the next 10.
I think they could even not even just run the Hoosier 100 there, but just get more dirt track races there. Period.
Yeah.
And it's
it is an underused facility.
It is very underused. My goodness.
I think we talked about this a little bit last fall to a little bit extent, but. You got NASCAR comes to town. Why aren't we sending the K&N cars out there? I know they think it might be better at IRP, but it's another use for that track too. Something, just bring them in there. The USAC can obviously come back and maybe run a secondary race.
Run dirt late models too.
That's true.
Dirt late models are always popular races, or just dirt and what? There's so many.
ARCA doubleheader.
ARCA could race there. ARCA has raced there before, actually.
Yeah, they have. They currently race at Springfield and Des Moines, both in Illinois.
Right, and those are wonderful facilities, wonderful tracks. Those races are historic. They're wonderful. They're unique to watch.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where you have a mile dirt track that's just sitting here, and it creates wonderful racing. It creates interesting racing, and it's a fun time to go out there and see some of the races. So it just makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, honestly, like, why would you get rid of this?
Yeah.
Why would you get rid of that for something like harness? And why crushed limestone, too?
Yeah.
Why crushed? Is that really better for harness racing?
I think they must be wanting to bring Indiana limestone to that. I don't know.
There's so many other things you could do with limestone there, but I don't even. That's got to be painful for the horses. I've got to imagine. I mean, if we're worried about horses being,
I imagine it's a fine powder, not like a rock. I imagine it's probably like a fine powder thing. But then again, like that seems like another unnecessary expense to the fair commission.
What's wrong with dirt?
Yeah, it's crazy. That might have been an extended educational and opinionated featured track segment, but we're passionate about it, and we hate to see that track go. So
finally, make sure to clear your schedules Thursday night.
Yes, get there, watch it. It'll be fun. It always is. So what's in the windshield? We got my favorite race day of the year.
Yeah,
we got Race Miss coming up here.
Gosh, yes.
Like I said, we might talk about Formula 1 a little bit. We won't dive into that in a big way today, but you have Formula 1 in the morning, here in the States anyways.
Yeah.
You have the Indianapolis at noon, and then you have the World 600, as it should be called. We'll touch on that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. The at night, and it's an action-packed day. You don't bother me at home. Yeah, I mean, my mom, my dad knew growing up, you don't bother Josh on Racemas. And so Formula 1, it's probably going to go to Mercedes.
Of course.
But for the Indianapolis 500, we've talked about it a lot. Your prediction, who's going to win, and maybe who might be a surprise driver?
It's really early for me to make predictions. I typically don't make my prediction for the race until Carb Day.
Well, I'm going to ask you to make Carb Day predictions.
I know. Because Carb Day is usually like... Carb Day is when you know who's good and who's not.
Yeah.
Because that's the first day when everybody's out there in race trim. And you can look good in qualifying trim, but if your race trim isn't up to snuff on Carb Day, then you're going to struggle all day Sunday. So... But I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, I think those Carpenter cars are going to be ones to beat.
Yeah.
I really, really like the odds right now of either Ed Carpenter, Ed Jones, or Spencer Pigot.
Yeah.
And you don't want to discount Penske cars. Of course, Simon Pagenaud got the pole. Yeah. But Simon Pagenaud just barely got the pole. He got the pole by probably less than... He got the pole by 1,000th of a second, basically.
Yeah, it was very close.
So, I mean... And Ed knows how to race. Ed's got all the patience in the world.
Yeah.
Believe me. Ed is probably the most willing to win this race of everyone else in the field. And so I would probably have to pick Ed Carpenter. But again, we'll have to see what happens in Carb Day. If he's not nearly as fast with a toe, oh boy, it's gonna be difficult for him. But I do think that him, Pigot, and Jones are probably the ones to watch on Friday and then on Saturday as well. And, Friday, Carb Day, I'm excited for Carb Day every day.
Yeah.
Because I love that Indy Lights race. And I'm so excited.
Freedom 100 is a great race to watch.
But there was some really sad news that came out yesterday. Zachary Claman-DeMello will not be racing in the Freedom 100. He has lost his sponsorship money. And Belardi has said, all right, well, goodbye. And, a guy who finished on the podium in the last race, the last Indy Lights race, is not going to run the Freedom 100.
Economics of motorsports.
It's a cruel mistress, that's what she is. It's truly cruel that even a guy like that can't find funding to run Indy Lights, which is really unfortunate because Zachary Claman-DeMello is a guy that I don't think a lot of people really ever... took notice of. I mean, I think a lot of people thought of him as kind of like a replacement for Pietro Fittipaldi, but the kid was good. The kid was good in Indy Lights. The kid was good in IndyCar. He ran well in the 500. I didn't set the world on fire, but you don't have to as a rookie unless you're like Marco Andretti. But I think ultimately it's gonna be It's going to be a fun weekend. I'm really, really looking forward to Racemas, like you said. I love Racemas because I wake up at... I don't even sleep, usually. I usually don't even sleep, or I sleep all day Saturday. I've done that multiple times where I've slept all day Saturday just so that I can be awake all day Sunday. So that's something that I'm excited for because I think that they'll still probably do it, but the media center at IMS always plays the Monaco Grand Prix every morning.
Yep.
And that's something I look forward to. I get there so early and then I'm counting down like, when's Monaco start? I'll go out and take a look at the crowd, take a look at the track. I'll probably do a little grid walk or something in the morning. But as soon as that Monaco Grand Prix starts, I'm back in the media center waiting to watch that. So I'm excited for it. And I'm excited for the Coke 600 later that night. But I got to ask you, who are your picks to win this upcoming Sunday?
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not a limb. It's just he hasn't raced in a year. Helio. I think Helio's going to get that fourth 500 this year. I really hope so.
Boy, I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
That'd be really big for the sport, I think, as such a popular driver to get that. So, and then I think I'm going to, and I talked about a little bit earlier, I think I'm predicting he gets top 10. Might be wrong on that. I hope he does. I hope the SPM can turn that around. But Helio's my pick. And I want to see Joseph Newgarden, because this is my next question.
Right.
I want to see Joseph Newgarden run the double. I want to see him turn around, run the 500, and drive for Penske in the World 600. So who do you think would be a good driver you'd like to see in IndyCar? An IndyCar full-time driver run the Indianapolis 500 and then turn around and run the World 600.
I've never even thought of an IndyCar driver, full-time IndyCar driver. I've always only ever thought of NASCAR drivers doing that.
That's why I asked the question. It's so off the wall.
You know what? If that's the case, then can I go ahead and pick Connor Daly? Because I think he'd be great at that.
I think so.
I think I'd love to see someone like Connor Daly go ahead and do that. But ideally... And since to answer your question, I wanted to say Connor Daly, but ideally, I think I would absolutely love a scenario where both Busch brothers run the double.
That would be awesome to see.
Because I know both of them want to do it again.
Yeah,
I know Kyle wants to do it, and I know Kurt wants to do it again too.
That would be very fun. That would be an interesting charity bet. Whoever has the best average finish
for sure.
pays the other guy, the prize money for the day. That would be good to see. So in the Coca-Cola 600, before we get to the predictions, the World 600, Junior refuses it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. refuses to call it the Coca-Cola 600. He calls it the World 600 because I like it. We're trying to get, NASCAR's trying to get back to the roots. World 600, what it was before. So should the World 600 name be reinstated in the next contract talk between the Coca-Cola Company and Charlotte Motor Speedway /SMI?
I don't see what's wrong with calling it the Coca-Cola World 600.
There you go. A combination. I like that.
Then you could just pick and choose. If you like calling it the Coke 600, you call it the Coke 600.
That's a good compromise. We talked about compromise earlier. Yeah, I like that.
Everyone should compromise. Compromise should just be how the world works. Unfortunately, that's not how the world
works.
What
happened?
But...
Spoiler alert. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, don't listen. But what happened on Game of Thrones last night? There was compromise. So,
you're asking me what happened on Game of Thrones. I have never seen it, and I pay for HBO.
What? Oh my goodness. All right. Well, so who's your predictions for the Coca-Cola 600?
Coca-Cola 600, I'm probably going to have to... Man, that's a harder one to predict because you don't even know what they're going to look like probably until qualifying day. Whereas...
Well, think about what the weather's been like at the couple mile and a half this year and what the package has done. That's how I'm basing mine off of.
I'm probably going to go with Kevin Harvick.
Kevin Harvick?
I think Kevin Harvick is one of those guys right now that is on a tear, and he's not in the twilight of his career, but he's on a tear right now in terms of just flat flying, and he's probably at the peak of his career too. He's probably at the peak of his talent, where this is the best Kevin Harvick's going to be. He's got the best team probably under his wing. The guy's probably going to go out there and win pretty easily. Now, if he can't, I think it's either going to be him or Kyle Busch, but I'm going to hard go with Kevin Harvick. But as we've seen in the past, that race has typically yielded some interesting winners, some different winners, and a race that's that long, a race that has 4 stages. Under every circumstance, I would think we could have an upset winner on fuel mileage. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love
Dillon,
fuel mileage.
2017.
I love fuel mileage races. I also hate races like 2016 where Truex just won the whole thing.
Yeah.
That was boring.
That was a very boring race.
That was an awful race. That
was a terrible package too, but we won't get into that.
No, we won't get into that. But I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I don't think it will happen this year. I think we'll see a little more interesting race. You might have a Harvick or Busch go in there and be a little bit more dominant. But as we've seen a little bit this year, those RCR cars are very interesting to watch.
I like Austin Dillon. I like Austin Dillon's chances this year.
And Hendrick, past few weeks, picked up a little bit. They should be good to watch. I'm going to go Martin Truex. I think
that's fair.
I think he'll do good. I think he's looking maybe a little bit redemption after the Kansas performance. So the cooler it'd be interesting to watch because obviously Kansas was the best mile and a half race this year. Cooler temperatures yielded that. You're not going to see that at Kentucky in July.
No, you're not.
We'll talk about Kentucky in extent in later weeks. But Charlotte, it'll be interesting. If it's as hot as this weekend, obviously the night's going to go on. Track temps will cool down, but it's not going to cool down a whole lot. It won't get down to the Kansas temps unless there's a drastic change.
Right.
But I'm going to go, again, with Martin Truex. Driving the hot and the heat there. He's done it before. He's done it a few times in the past few years, driving for Furniture Row. And he's in good equipment. And he's Kyle Busch's teammate. I didn't want to pick Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick is what I'm trying to say. But Kevin Harvick should win if his crew can get it done on pit road. And you got to pit a number of times in this race. So
you could probably also make an argument there for Jimmy Johnson too.
Jimmy Johnson, I would not be surprised if him and Kevin Meendering play strategy and roll the dice a lot because it is approaching 2 years since Jimmy Johnson has visited a points-paying victory lane. He won the Clash earlier this year, but the points-paying victory lane...
I would love to see Johnson win again at Charlotte because he's owned that track. He owned that track my entire time growing up.
It was Lowe's Motor Speedway, and the guy in Lowe's car won the race.
He owned that track, and he's so good there.
Yeah.
I think if that you can't count out Jimmy Johnson in any race.
Yeah.
You can't really count out Jimmy Johnson in any race, but I think this go around, I think that's a really good time to probably take a good bet on Jimmy Johnson. So I know we just threw out a bunch of different drivers that could win.
Yeah.
But that's NASCAR. Yeah. That's realistically how NASCAR is. It's hard to pick a driver because nowadays. It was probably easier back in 2017 or 2016 when you knew Truex was going to win every week. But I still think this is a time where Jimmy Johnson has. I still don't like splitting him up from Chad Knaus, but it hasn't been a complete failure like I thought it would be.
It's actually been beneficial to Byron and Johnson both.
I think it's done well for both of them. So I think that Jimmy Johnson is a guy you can't count out.
Yeah, it's like Haas is maybe looking a little bit better. Gibbs and Penske have been dominant all year long. I mean, they own all but one win this year, and that other win goes to Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
So, but it's culminating at the good time. You got a couple of teams. The Chevrolet looks like it might be picking up their mojo a little bit, which is good to see. You don't want to see us manufacturers struggle.
No, I don't want to see any manufacturer struggle.
So that would be good. So that's what's in the windshield. And hey, thank you everyone for joining us this week and listening to the first ever Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. Again, hope you enjoyed this show. Hope you join us next week. Again, be sure to follow both of us on Twitter. Rob is at rpeeters33. That is at symbol RPEETER S33.
Yeah, don't forget that 2 E's because a lot of people screw that up.
Yeah, that is not a typo. It is RPEETERS33.
It's Dutch for those of you who are wondering.
I didn't know that. That's Dutch. Okay.
Yeah, it is Dutch. Actually, my cousin, I remember when my cousin was born, a lot of people, my aunt came in and said, "Oh, we named him after Arie Luyendyk." Not really, but I like to think that he was named after Arie Luyendyk.
Well, there you go. And be sure to follow myself as well at roller_01. That's at ROLLER_01. Again, hope you have a happy Racemas this Sunday.
Happy Racemas, yes.
Enjoy the Monaco Grand Prix, even though it might be Mercedes runaway yet again. But
enjoy it anyway, because the coverage is good.
The coverage is good, and you know what? It's fun to see a team be that dominant, but just not every year.
Hope Vettel wins.
Yeah, there you go. No, Leclerc.
Oh, or Leclerc.
Yeah.
You hope a Ferrari wins, but we all know who's going to win.
Yeah. Enjoy the Indianapolis 500. First year it's on NBC.
Yeah, don't forget that. I saw a lot of people in comments and on Twitter and stuff saying that they still think it's on ABC. It's on NBC this year. If you live in Indianapolis, it's on WTHR Channel 13.
There you go. And the Coca-Cola 600 that night for NASCAR. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for listening.